Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good Monday morning. How's everybody doing out there? Listening to a little Jeffrey Smith, a little jazz action today. Hey, I see y'all are coming on in today. Listening to a little sweet serenade by Jeffrey Smith. Talking entrepreneurship today on our 10 days of positive inspiration. Hey, Kim. Hey, Kim. Some of you, I'm not able to see that you're on just yet, but I always go back and try to acknowledge you and speak to you. Have an opportunity. I want you to share the broadcast out. I'll be dropping some gems today about entrepreneurship. And those of you who either have your business or who are either interested in owning your own business. So good to see you today. Hey there, Denise. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. Good morning. Good morning. Hope you had an amazing weekend. I know some folks have had to go back to work today. I don't quite know what I think about that yet. Still feel some kind of way about that, if you know what I mean. Listening to a little jazz this morning. Nothing like some jazz to kind of take it on down, bring it on down. So we're going to go ahead and move on because I see you all are coming on in today. Reluctantly, I'll turn down my music and keep on moving on. So anyway, I want to say good morning to you and want to say thank you so much for joining us this morning on 10 days of positive inspiration. We are on day 8, believe it or not. We started a week ago, last Monday, at the end of April. And we have covered a range of things. We looked at your health. We looked at your mind. After that, we went to finances. Then last Thursday, we covered how to move forward in your purpose during this time. And then from there, we covered some family relationships. And we started, first of all, with the family. Then on Saturday, good morning, Wade. How are you doing? Some of you, if I can see you and some I can't. So if you're on, I want to say good morning. It's not that I'm not trying to acknowledge you. I'm on a new platform and I've got to understand how all aspects of this work. So just understand I am not ignoring you. I've just got to understand how it works. But then on Saturday, Mr. Jefferson, Dr. Jefferson joined me, my husband. He joined me and we talked about marriages and looking at what you can do during this time to positively advance marriage relationships during this time. Then yesterday, we looked at those of you who are heading back into your jobs and in your careers. We looked at how to positively advance your career during this time. Good morning, cousin Maria Jefferson. Good morning. Good morning. And then today, we're looking at entrepreneurship. Okay. What can you do as an entrepreneur? And I'm talking to those of you who, there are distinct categories. Number one, there are those of you who may be in a job and who may feel as if you want to become an entrepreneur and you're trying to figure out what are the steps. You know, you may have even lost a job. And if so, I'm so sorry to hear that. My heart goes out to you. And I want to make sure that you understand that I am concerned about you in that arena. So prayerfully, I will say something that can help you as well if you have lost a job. But I also want you to understand you have an opportunity during this time. I want you to understand that it is an opportunity. In the words of the great A.G. Gaston, his philosophy was simple. He was a millionaire, hailed right from the city of Birmingham, Alabama, and right from the state of Alabama, and was recognized by leaders all over the globe, all over the nation. Why? Because he just had a knack for business. And what was his business philosophy? His business philosophy was simple: find a need and fill it. So if you have had this burning desire to be an entrepreneur, if you believe in your heart that you are an entrepreneur at heart, but you're in a job right now, or even if you are an entrepreneur, I'm still saying the very same thing to you. Find a need and fill it. Even if you are an entrepreneur, it doesn't give you any excuse per se to say, well, I'm already an entrepreneur, I don't have to deal with that. Well, listen, I have seen entrepreneurs, myself included, even during this time, we've had to reinvent ourselves. For those I have two businesses. One is a coaching consulting arm, okay, which is a relatively new arm right now that I'm just sort of walking in now. But for many years, I've had a products and service arm, okay, as the owner and founder of All Shea Naturals luxury body butters and sugar scrubs. And I found that I've had to reinvent myself. I've had to look at new ways of doing business during this time. So again, I'm talking to two distinct sets of people, those of you who desire to be an entrepreneur and those of you who already are entrepreneurs, because you still have an opportunity to reset and to reinvent as well, okay? So what's our founding statement today? I already mentioned that in the words of the great A.G. Gaston, his business principle was simple: find a need and fill it. And I also want to tell you, I've got my little pet. She's in the back. She's not happy right now because she's got a little muzzle on because she's been eating everything around the house. So she's not happy, and I want to get to her, but she's going to have to keep it on a little bit longer. But that's his business principle. Look around you. See, in school, we have been taught, the educational system, great as it is, but in our educational system, we have been taught to get educated, go to school for a certain amount of time, and then once you come out, go and work for someone else. That's what our educational system teaches us. You understand? And that's not wrong, but all of our lives in that system, we are prepared for, and hey, good morning, Melva. Melva says, love your products. Thank you so much, Melva, and love what you do in the community. And thank you so much for long being an example and a mentor to us, Melva, who didn't have a clue about how to jump out into the entrepreneurial arena. So thank you so much for what you have done as well. So just to mention this again, and I'm sorry, I'm getting my little background all together here, but in our school systems, they teach us how to work for another person. They teach us how to sort of comply, okay, kind of like in the assembly line of life. Well, one thing that you're going to understand about an entrepreneur's mindset is disruptive. An entrepreneur, I'm so sorry, my nose is running this morning. Please forgive me. And I don't happen to have any sort of tissue or anything. Good Lord, live TV, right? Okay. But the entrepreneur thinks outside of the box. The entrepreneur thinks outside of the box. The entrepreneur is not concerned with necessarily going to work a job. An entrepreneur is moved by passion. An entrepreneur is moved by that thing or that burning desire in their heart in which they believe, or that problem in which they believe they were called to solve. And let me just go ahead and tell you, for those of you who have the desire to be an entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart, ladies and gentlemen. It is not. There has to be a fortitude. There has to be a persistence. There has to be a determination that's unlike any other. Okay? I'm literally, after more than 25 years in the workforce, actually, let me recount that, actually more than 30 years in the workforce, okay? It has been, and I'm not knocking you going to do your job, okay? Thank God for these jobs. I've had great jobs in my life. I've had great positions in my life. So please don't hear me saying anything negative in that arena. But I'm saying that when sometimes it's easier to get up and to go and to work a job, and you come home and that's all you have to worry about. You work in that job, the insurance is taken care of, the systems are already in place. You just kind of plug into the system and just do your part. You have a team of people to depend on. As an entrepreneur, you do not necessarily have that luxury, okay? An entrepreneur has a disruptive mindset. An entrepreneur is a person who says, I may not start off making $100,000, but I am willing to take a loss. I'm willing to take a risk, and I'm willing to build. I'm willing to take a short-term temporary loss in order to build something that not only allows me to make $100,000, but possibly even $500,000, $1 million. So an entrepreneur is a person who takes a calculated risk, hopefully. That's going to be my advice. A calculated risk. Okay. and has a plan in order to create a product or service or to walk in their calling, which they believe will benefit the greater good of mankind. It is risky business being an entrepreneur. Let me go ahead and warn you. For years, I courted the idea of being an entrepreneur. And I've shared my testimony, and I'm going to share my testimony again. I've always been in a position, by the grace of God, to have good jobs. Okay. I've always been in positions to have great jobs. I worked from 1996 to 2004 as an anchor at ABC 3340. I ended up leaving that job in May of 2004. I thought it was absolutely the worst decision that I'd ever made, but I had a desire in my heart and I had a word from the Lord, okay, that I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Well, that's just fine. But here's the problem. I had a word from God, and I want somebody to hear this, but I did not have a plan. I had a word from the Lord, but I did not have a plan. No, I didn't have a plan. I literally, and I'm trying to go back. I'm sorry, going back, dealing with my comments, but I did not have a plan. I just had a word from God. So I was super spiritual, but did not have the natural, didn't have the plan in place in order to sustain myself as an entrepreneur. So I ended up jumping out. And once I jumped out, I thought, okay, what do I do? So I'd saved some money. So it wasn't like I was poor, never lost my house or anything like that. But I wiped out all of my savings back in the day when I did this in 2004. I wiped out all of the cash. When I tell you that God is amazing, that God is good, because God not only allowed me to build back up, I felt like Job at that time. You know, God not only allowed me to build back up, but God has allowed me to create even more, paying off bills and doing some different things. And I remember saying to him again, I remember saying, God, you give me another opportunity. Failure is not an option for me. And I'm telling you, as walking as an entrepreneur in this season, failure is not an option. But here's the deal. You have to be even careful saying that, because as an entrepreneur, you will experience some failure. Steve Harvey puts it best. When you jump, if you've never heard his video on that, it is so motivational. And I can remember it just as clear as day. I listened to it for, 10 times, 12 times. He says, when you have a desire to be an entrepreneur, he said, you know what? You should jump. Have you heard his testimony, Steve Harvey's testimony as an entrepreneur? He worked at Ford. He ended up leaving. You know, he won $50 at a comedy show. And I can't believe I'm sharing Steve Harvey's testimony. But, you know, he won $50 at a comedy show. And he ended up getting that $50. And once he got that $50, he said, that's it. You know, they voted for me as a comedian. This is my new life. And all I know is this is my new life. And I am going to make the best of this that I have right now. And he ended up leaving his job. Now, it caused some scars. It caused some problems with his family. There were times that Steve said that he even had to sleep in his car because he did not know where his next meal was coming from. He didn't know where his next dollar was coming from. Go back to what I told you. He made $50, but in his mind, that $50 might as well had been $500,000, because for him, it was a vote to say, this is what you're supposed to do. Now I know. And I'm going to tell you something. Keep in mind, as an entrepreneur is a person who does not mind taking a risk. So for Steve Harvey at that time, and for others of us who have had to make that decision, taking the risk is not a big deal, because there's something greater that we believe in. There's something bigger that we see. Okay. And really and truly, the two things that I wanted to share is walking me right into this. There are two things that you have to consider as an entrepreneur. Number one, you have to consider purpose. When you understand that your purpose is that of being an entrepreneur, it nullifies all of the risks that go along with that, because it's risky business. When you're talking about funding your own health care, taking care of your bills with your only resources, not having a team of people, having to do everything in and of yourself, it is risky business. You understand? But there are such things as calculated risk, because there are things that motivate you, your purpose. Your purpose. And you may say, I just feel like I'm supposed to be an entrepreneur. No problem. And my question to you would be, saying that you want to be an entrepreneur. Okay, no problem. So now that you want to be an entrepreneur, then what type of entrepreneur do you feel that you should be? Do you know the type of entrepreneur? Do you know? So let's just I always use this example. Might as well use it here. You say that you bake cakes. Okay. You want to bake cakes. You are known in the neighborhood. You are known in your community for baking great cakes. Okay, so my question to you is, if you bake the best cakes around, so my question is, how do you take this gift of baking cakes and how do you translate it into a talking about purpose? You know that you were created to bake cakes like none other. But there is a difference in baking cakes for a hobby and sharing it with people and then turning that gift into a profitable business. There is a difference. You understand? There is a difference. There's systems that have to be put in place. There's know-how that has to be put in place because that $25 cake, you've got to think, okay, I've got to sell, let's see, let's just say you sell one $25 cake. Okay, if you sell 10 cakes a day, you're making what, $250 a day. So is that enough for you to sustain your business and also live off of it? Is that enough for you to live off of it? Because keep in mind now, when you're baking these cakes, you've got the whole other business aspect that goes into it. You've got to consider your building. You've got to consider if you're going to bake cakes out of your home. You've got to consider your marketing. You've got to consider if you're just going to be a team of one or if you're going to hire other people. You've got to consider all of the business licenses. You've got to consider all of the ordinances. You've got to consider, okay, so much that you have to consider. So once you learn your purpose, it's not enough. Then you have to go on to preparation and planning. And that's where you figure out, okay, I know how to bake cakes. That is my gift. But how do I turn this into a viable, sustainable business in which I and my family can live off of? I find too many people who have a dream and a vision and who court the idea of being an entrepreneur, but do not have the proper planning and do not have the proper preparation in place. I was one of those people when I launched out and I left television news in 2004. You didn't know that, did you? I had a dream and a vision in my heart and I had a word from the Lord, but I had no planning. I had no planning, but I knew. And so what did I end up doing eventually? I ended up having to go back to a position, I guess not having to, but I just didn't have a plan. I didn't have a proper foundation. So if that is your desire, I'm not knocking it. By all means, I couldn't knock it because I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So I could not knock that. The only thing I will say to you is it's got to be more. That prayer and planning are not opposed to one another. What is your plan? How are you going to prepare to sell those cakes and have your cakes go all over the world? What is your plan? What is your plan to mass produce those cakes? You can produce 10 cakes in a day. You can produce 45 cakes in a week. But how do you scale up? How do you move it to the next level? How do you, can you make 500 cakes in a week? If you say, man, that I could surely live off of that. Sure you could. But then it would be more equipment that you would need, more tools that you'd need. You'd need more flour. You'd need more raw materials. And you'd need to hire people because certainly, I mean, if you can bake 500 cakes in a week, you go, girl, you go, boy. If you can do that, I'm being facetious, but I hope you get what I'm saying. It's got to be more than just a prayer and a plan because you'll end up and you'll end out in a situation and you'll become disenfranchised and say, that is not, this isn't working. Yes, it will. It works if you work it. It works if you work it. You can have a word from God. You can have the encouragement from family and friends, but that is not enough to sustain you in the challenging times. You're going to need a plan. So my question to you is, how are you planning to be an entrepreneur? Okay. How are you planning? Now, I'll tell you how I did it. And prayerfully, this helps someone. It may not be, but and listen, I'm not going to negate the wisdom of God. Hey, Errol says, here, I hear you. I'm not going to negate the guidance of the Holy Spirit. I won't negate that. What do I mean when I say that? I mean that for you, God may speak because God can speak specifically to you and say, It's time for you to launch out into the deep. It's time now for you to start that business. It's time now for you to go and do whatever. Now, I know people that God has spoken to do that. I know people that he said, yeah, I want you to go, you come off that job and do whatever. But here's the deal. God gauges that. In my opinion, I could be wrong. Actually, I don't believe I'm wrong, because this is what I believe happened with me. I believe God watches how you handle your downtime. I believe God watches how you steward over another man's. I believe God watches how you contribute in the job that you're on to see, is this person going to really be able to be resourceful? Are they really going to be able to use their time? Are they really going to be able to do, Lexi? Are they really going to be trying to call my dog because she's miserable with this little thing on her nose. But I think that God watches you to see how you steward your time and to see how you steward what is another man's. If you're faithful in another, God says that if you're faithful in the least, then he'll make you ruler over much. The least is when you go to another person's, because truly that's not your vision. You understand? That's not necessarily a God-given vision. You're assisting another man. You're assisting another entity in their vision. But if you're faithful in that, God can entrust you to be faithful in your own vision. Because listen, as an entrepreneur, I'm doing 10 days of positive inspiration. There's no one holding a clock over my head. There's no one holding a gun to my head saying, you need to get up and do this. An entrepreneur is a self-starter. An entrepreneur shows up, you understand, and they're motivated simply by the mission. I wanted to do something amazing. Come here, Lexi. I wanted to do something amazing. I wanted to do something thoughtful. I wanted to do something helpful for you all. Because why? Because I'm an encourager. I'm a motivator. I'm a speaker. I'm a life coach. So I thought, how can I use technology to help people, to move them past the dismay and the dismal time? I can use my gift, which is my mouth, and which is my gift to communicate and talking to the camera, that the God-given gift, but also the gift that I was taught at ABC 3340 and WAKA and WTVY. I used all of that, and I'm using it now to come and to be able to communicate to a mass audience, you understand? But this is my gift. Nobody's holding a gun to my head. I get up, I sit down and I write out my notes, and I determine what I'm going to talk to you about. And I leave my heart open for the Spirit of God to speak to me. I'm talking about being an entrepreneur, God may very well, and I believe in the season, God is beckoning for some of you to go ahead and start that business, for some of you to go ahead and make the move to entrepreneurism. But I also want you to understand that as part of that move, there will be a sacrifice, and there is an initiative that God is looking for, because you're taking wholeheartedly the risk of your financial future and your families upon yourself. That is, if you have a family. If you're single, it may be a little bit different. So what am I saying to you as I get ready to conclude in these next few minutes? I've been on for about 23 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and try to wrap it up. If you want to be an entrepreneur, there's purpose and there's planning. What is your purpose? What do you believe that God created you to do? Because you've got to stand even when it looks like it's not working. So you've got to know what he called you to do as an entrepreneur. And you've got to be sure that you should have an assurance about it. You understand? How do you get that assurance? You get that assurance by, what are people asking you for? What's that burning thing in your heart that you feel you're called to solve? What would you do if, and we're talking purpose, what would you do if you weren't getting paid? It doesn't matter that you're not getting paid. You're still going to do it. You're still going to be passionate. I'm not making a single dime to sit here and come and encourage you, but it's my passion. I must needs communicate. I must needs encourage you. You understand? What is that thing that you would do even though you're not being paid? Okay. Planning. Okay, how do I move? How do you move to being an entrepreneur if you are employed currently? You look at paying off bills. You look at what bills can be paid off. So when you do have to rely fully on money from building a business, you've got some bills paid, and you've got a certain number of bills or certain number of things that are due that you say, I can handle that either by savings, or maybe I can either take a small part-time job or do something a little bit differently. Or, best case scenario, you've test marketed your product. You've test marketed your service before you launch out into the deep. Before. So you already know that there's a need there. That's best case scenario. You already know that there's a need there. You already know that people will pay you for that product or service. So you just understand when you get the extra time, you have to ramp up now, okay? So you've paid off. So practically moving into entrepreneurism, giving you 3 tips today. You pay off your bills financially. You see what pools of money that you have, because you know that you're going to take, or you possibly could take, an immediate drop in income. So what can you pay off so you won't have as much money going off? Can you pay off your credit card? Can you pay off your car? Can you get your mortgage caught up for 6 or 7 months to give yourself a break from that, or even a year? What can you do that will reduce the amount of money that's outgoing from your household to give you time to build your business? They always tell you to have 6 months to a year of cash in an emergency fund. Well, it's the same as it operates here, okay? So you financially, now it's very practical, right? Has nothing to do with the gift and the call and all that stuff. This is just very practical. So financially, what can you do to set your house in order? What can you do to have as a backup plan? Okay. What can you do? Hopefully, and as you build, people, you've got to see how to tweak, and you've got to see how to scale up. So you need the time to do all of that. Okay. But financially, I would say it's one of the major deals, because you want to make sure that things are taken care of and that you don't have that stress of paying out so much money while you're building a business. Is it making sense to anybody? You all may be working or maybe driving. Am I making sense to anybody as it relates to entrepreneur? You can't just have a word. You can't just have a dream. It doesn't work like that. It's really very practical. And then once you step out, you have to make sure that, and I would say even beforehand, that Oscar Martin says, yeah. I love it. Oscar's just to the point. Yeah. My type of person. I'm to the point too, Oscar. And when you step out, yes, Mika Smith, yes, okay, good deal. Thank you for giving me feedback, Mika and Oscar. I appreciate it. And when you step out, you've got to commit yourself. Okay, I'm a life coach. Okay, makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Errol. I'm a life coach. But here's what you'll understand about me. I have a coach. So I'm just not out saying, woo, I'm a life coach. So yeah, y'all follow my advice. Y'all do whatever. Since I'm able to commit now and I have the time, I've put myself under the tutelage of a coach, because that's where I am, who's much more successful than I am, who's much more, she's farther advanced. She's got years ahead of me. And I see where I want to go there, and she's accessible. So I'm able to talk to her. I'm able to work with her, and I'm able to kind of be under her mentorship. So when you say, I want to start that business, I want to open my insurance firm. When you say, I want to open up a bakery, who can you get behind? Who can you have on speed dial? Who can help you, walk you through the bumps? Because remember, if you haven't heard this by Steve Harvey, I encourage you to go back to listen to Jump. Okay, he's got a book by that title, which I'm listening to right now. Green Power is another great resource. That's the book by A.G. Gaston, details his life. But Jump, if you haven't heard, it's a video clip. It is amazing, because remember, as you jump and as you leap out, you're going to make some mistakes. It's almost erroneous to say failure is not an option. Failure does happen sometimes, but the thing about an entrepreneur is we just fail fast. You fail, you say, whoop, that didn't work. So let me move on. Let me learn the lesson from that and move on. You understand? So make sure that you pay off some bills. Stop all of the bleeding. I have, even for a season, I told my husband, I said, I'm not going to get my nails done. I'm not going to get my toes done. I'll do it on my own, because that's something I don't have to have right now. I haven't been shopping and I don't know how long. I have lots of friends who own boutiques. I want to support them. I stopped doing that for a while. I said, I don't need new clothes. I'll wear what I have and believe God to change it around 100 times, because I've got clothes I've only worn once. I can go back and repurpose them. I don't need all of that right now. So what did I do? I stopped a lot of the outgoing cash so I could hold more for what we have here in the house. Okay. I paid off bills. We've paid off cars. We've paid off credit cards. Okay. While I was working, because, and I really didn't know I was going here this fast, really. But God saw my faithfulness in that practical matter, and the door opened up. You understand? It's practicality combined with your purpose and combined with the dream that sets the stage for you to walk in it. So cutting out the bleeding, cutting off some of the financial bleeding and the waste. cooking more at home. Okay, that makes sense from a financial perspective. Then once you jump out, making sure you have that pot of money or that your bills are going to be taken care of, et cetera, et cetera. You know, and I say if it's only 3 months, you can give yourself 3 months. If it's 6 months, give yourself 6 months. You know, I mean, some people just have a knack for, hey, if you're fired, this may be a totally different connotation. You understand? Totally different set of rules. But if you're planning to go there, these are some tips to get you there. Okay. And to get you there without the bleeding. And then secondly, once you get there, get some education. Get under somebody's tutelage. Let somebody mentor you. I don't care if they have to mentor you on YouTube. You don't have to always pay for it. If you're not able to afford it, no problem. Sit under someone who can impart knowledge into you, because that mentor, that person is going to be able to help you avoid some of their pitfalls, some of the pitfalls they made, and you can get there faster. That's the whole purpose of a mentor. That's the whole purpose of a coach. You can get there faster if you listen to them, if you do what they tell you to do. And again, I'm not always, if paid is not the in your budget, if a paid option is not viable, YouTube some people who give free advice. Read some blogs that offer free advice on start. Get on Forbes, sign up for Forbes, sign up for Entrepreneur, and sign up for these magazines and let them mentor you on how to become an entrepreneur. Okay. So we're about at the 30-minute mark. Yeah, we're at the 31-minute mark. And I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I hope that I gave you some practical tips on how to walk as an entrepreneur. And, you know, listen, I like I said, I've created this book, and sometimes I shudder to mention it, but I have a book. Now is the time for your new beginning that you can check out on Amazon. Quick read, $10 investment. And for those of you who say, I know I want to be an entrepreneur, but I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. I want to make sure that I'm in the right arena. It's a great resource for that. Why? Because you will learn practical ways. What did you, and I mentioned it earlier, but it goes into more detail. You see, Oprah Winfrey kind of became almost like a coach, TV talk show hostess. Michael Jordan was a basketball coach. Steve Harvey. These people knew that they just knew. Michael Jordan knew he was supposed to play basketball. Oprah Winfrey knew, even though she was a broadcast TV journalist, she catapulted that into becoming a talk show hostess. Why? Because she just knew that that's what she was supposed to do. So there may be something that you feel that you're supposed to do, but you're unsure. So I wrote the book, Now is the Time for Your New Beginning, because I wanted you to understand that there are markers that help you determine that thing that you're called to do. And I'm specifically speaking to entrepreneurs today. You understand? You know, there's some people who their deal may not be entrepreneurism. They may be called to work in a company and they like that safety and security and the support and the camaraderie. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Absolutely nothing. Okay. This is just for those of you who believe that you are called to be an entrepreneur. So I pray that I shared some good tips with you today. We're at 32 minutes and I am going to give you time back so you can enjoy the rest of your day. So I want to say thank you to all of you for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow at 10 o'clock as we get ready to conclude on the final 2 days of 10 days of positive inspiration. And I pray that I shared something with you that will make your journey easier or encourage you on the way to entrepreneurship. If you have a question about anything, just send me a message and I'll be happy to clarify, or I'll be happy to answer your questions or to share something that can bless you on your journey to entrepreneurship. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I pray that you have an amazing Monday. And as always, I say to you, be safe out there in the light of COVID-19. Be safe, okay? Have a great one, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.